I mean, another one that we might just mention is in chapter 3,
Mm,
and just the conditional sentences in chapter 3. You know, as you know, all conditional sentences are not the same in Greek. And
mhm,
sometimes if we understand what kind of a condition it is, it helps us think more correctly about the passage, perhaps. And I like that in First Peter chapter 3. Uh, Now, who is there to harm you if you are zealous for what is good? And there's a
mm,
condition there. Who will do you harm if you are zealous for what is good? And the condition that's used there, I think I have the right one, is, it's, I would call a third class conditional sentence. It
mhm.
means an open possibility. In other
Yeah,
words, who will harm you if you would be zealous for good? And that's,
mm,
something that very likely the recipients will do, hopefully. Peter is hoping that will be zealous for good. And then he goes in verse 14 and he says, and here's another condition, chapter 3, verse 14. But even if you should suffer for righteousness' sake, you will be blessed. But he
mm,
uses a different conditional construction there with the optative verb,
mm,
that even if you should suffer for righteousness' sake. And so
mm.
this is possible, but it's not an open possibility like the previous one. It's more of a remote possibility. If
Mm.
you would suffer for righteousness' sake, you are blessed. So
Yeah.
Peter is not saying here, not teaching that all believers are going to suffer, not with that construction anyhow. But what he's
Mm,
saying is that, who's going to harm you if you do good? Generally speaking, if you do good, you will be blessed. But even if you would suffer, and it is
mm,
possible, it is
mm,
possible. It's the way he writes it. I would say we would understand that that's probably not going to happen to everyone. But if you would suffer for righteousness' sake, uh, and it makes it even more emphatic, you are still blessed, even if that happens to you,
yeah.
because you are. Then he will of course explain that in the rest of the epistle.
Mm,
So,
yeah.
I mean, to me, the little bit of understanding of the conditional sentences, which we don't
Mm,
get in English at all, helps
no.
us understand a little bit more precisely maybe what he is saying. I hope I've made that
Definitely.
clear.
Yeah, and it makes clear and it's contrasted to the one in 1:6, which is a first class. So that is then affirmed. So what happens with like first class, which is also what we call a realis in other language, which just means that this is true for the sake of the argument, and then the context will discern whether it is true. And in this case, that
Right.
it says that you are going to suffer, or you are going to, if, so the most translation will be say that you rejoice in, so let me see if I can recall it um, from memory, is that if in this you rejoice, if you, if it may be, that's how it usually translated in many translations,
Mhm.
may maybe um, be grieved by many trials. But the Greek is actually saying that this is the case, and then the hina clause afterwards. So, in order that your true faith may be that is more worth more than gold, may be proven, may be found. It says to praise,
Yes.
glory, and honor when Jesus is revealed. So in that case, it's saying that these sufferings are there for a purpose to basically uh, make your faith even stronger in many ways,
Yes.
and
Yeah,
that
it's
doesn't come across in translation.
he's assuming it to be true for the sake of his argument. In this one, it seems like if it is necessary, and like you say, I think that's a really good point that we need to understand with Greek conditionals,
Mm,
that when if the if clause is fulfilled, then the protasis, the then clause, will follow. That's if it does happen. But the certainty of the if clause is not always as on the same level. How likely that would happen?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think that many people misunderstand when Jesus is talking about his prayer. If it is your will, in the garden, he's saying that. That is also a first-class conditional clause. So it's also true for the sake of argument, but that in the context there it is proved. It is not, he's not going to not go to the cross.
Yes.
So he will go to the cross. Because it is God's will that he's going to the cross.
Yes.
Yeah.
If it is, that's right. Good. It's a good explanation. I mean, those, to me, conditional sentences are a major way that the Greek opens up the New Testament to us, giving us a little more insight that we don't, it doesn't explain everything, but at least it helps us to understand the way that the author is looking at the condition as far as how certain he is presenting it to the recipients anyhow. So that's helpful.
Yeah. And in Greek, it's very important the context to these sentences.
Yes.
And the verb determines which type of conditional sentence it is.
Correct. Yeah.
And we just can't convey that in English. It just doesn't happen.
No, it's so again, that would be, I mean, for a person to even be able to trying to learn to understand the New Testament, if they knew enough Greek, to start by learning your alphabet and learning vocabulary and learning nouns and then verbs. And once you start to learn the verbs, it would be not too much of a step to put that together and be able to discern those kinds of things. Yeah. Be very helpful.
Exactly. So, and it is something that is exegetically meaningful as well.
It really is. It's very, go ahead.
Yeah, I remember that when I've also done some research on 1 Peter 1, and I think Eliot, the big commentary on it, actually makes an exegetical mistake and a grammatical mistake. He's taking the example that you showed from chapter 3 and saying that is the same in chapter 1.
Okay.
So, and that is where he, because he doesn't like the theology of chapter 1, verse 6 and 7, he assumes the wrong grammar.
Yes, and that's easy to do if you don't take the difference into consideration. Yeah. Good. So I think it's very important in both of those places, but going back to chapter 3, where if even, in fact, there's a kai there too, ala e kai, but if even you should suffer for the sake of righteousness. If it happens that it does, and he's presenting it as not a likely thing, but it's possible here for the sake of argument, you are blessed, even if. So, and it gives me the impression that Peter is saying here, I'm not saying that you're all should walk out, from church this morning and think you're going to suffer, but even if that would happen, if you're zealous for righteousness, that's the key thing. You're going to be blessed if it would. So, yeah.
Yeah. And if you suffer as Christians, as he continues.
Yes.
So that then you are Makaios. Then you are blessed.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, I think that's kind of the perspective we should probably have. I mean, we're supposed to follow in Jesus' steps. We're supposed to expect that we may suffer, and it's very likely we will through, in different times in our lives, but it's not the everyday, every moment experience of believers. And we probably shouldn't live as if we're always expecting to suffer everything that happens to us in the world. It seems like he's saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for watching this clip. If you enjoyed it, you can find another one by clicking just over here. Or if you want to watch the full episode and dive a step deeper, you can find a link in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.